屏幕前的各位召唤师们，大家好，我是夏安。现在正值英雄联盟13周年之际，我们也邀请到了几位平时很难见到的好朋友，来和我们的国服玩家们见面，解答一下大家非常感兴趣的一些问题。
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Matt. I'm the lead gameplay designer for League of Legends.
Hey everyone, I'm Ezra. I'm a senior game designer on League of Legends.
好的，欢迎二位。那其实今天我们也是有备而来啊。Are you guys ready?
Yep.
OK， 我们的第一个问题是与匹配机制有关的。其实前一段时间我们也感觉到，针对匹配机制是做出了一些改变和优化的。后续会不会有更多的关于匹配机制的一些改动呢？
Yeah, so on the China server, we were informed about such problems like the win rate harvesting teams and some of the problems with wide team differences. And we invested a lot of resources into finding what were the root causes for these problems. And we successfully managed to bring a lot of them down. And so we observe a lot more tight matchmaking within teams, as well as reduced incidents of running into these win rate harvesting teams. We also massively reduced the queue times in especially lower skill games in the China server. And we were trying to make the blue side and red side much more even between the teams, as well as reduce the LP differences between the teams. So we hope to see massively reduced LP gaps between the teams.
那么接下来我们也是大家非常常讨论的一个问题，也就是我们的红蓝方的一个视角问题，或许在未来是否会考虑一些改动？
Yeah, so in patch 14.4, we made some changes to the default camera angle for red side to try and address some of this issue. And we noticed that it was actually pretty significant in improving the red side player experience. You know, we moved the camera a little further up so that the players would be able to see more at the bottom of their screen. Having said that, you know, we've investigated a bunch of different solutions and we generally feel like we want to keep it kind of the way it is.
那接下来的这个问题好像就有一点点难度了，因为其实在过往的版本，设计师有降低打野位的一些经验来降低打野位置的影响力，但是呢，其实在近期设计师又回调了野区的经验，所以说也想问一下，设计师到底希望打野在我们的游戏当中是拥有怎样的一个影响力呢？
Generally, our goal in the jungle is to have it so all classes are viable and the role isn't ever too strong so that other roles don't feel worthless or that they don't feel like they're at mercy of the jungler. But we also want the jungle to feel like a role where you can be important and powerful and not like you are serving everyone else and that's your job.
在最近的版本，很多的法师的英雄，包括说法师的装备都得到了一些加强，这是不是意味着可能我们设计师团队 想要让法师能够重新主导中路了呢？
I think we really want mages to be a mid lane primary class. We want them to feel viable there and feel powerful at all levels of play. And so we've been buffing some characters and also we've been looking to items. Like we might look at something like Shadow Flame or maybe look at something like Ludens and see if these items are things we think are weak or if it's the characters themselves that are weak. And then we'll build them up so that not that they're overpowered in mid lane, but that they can match the ADCs, the assassins, or the skirmishers in the lane.
那另外还有一个问题，其实很多的玩家都比较的介意啊。那其实关于致命节奏这个点啊，我们的职业选手有在赛后采访当中有提到。
那个致命节奏删除之后，很多 AD 会跟我抱怨说，不知道带什么天赋嘛，然后就希望，可不可以考虑改回来，然后这样很多 AD 就可以玩了。
所以说也借此机会来问一下我们的设计师老师，或许在未来我们可不可以看到致命节奏重新回来呢？有没有相关的计划？
Yeah, so we've heard a lot of discussion about lethal tempo in the global community and especially in the Chinese server. This video became very popular and, you know, I saw it, made a reply video to it. We currently, as a result of that, we are planning to bring back lethal tempo, which is, we want to bring back lethal tempo in a way that doesn't run into some of the previous balance issues that we observed with it. So maybe Ezra can talk a little about that.
We found that certain characters felt like they were lethal tempo and not their character, especially early game. So for characters like YASUO and Yone, they will still like the rune a lot, but they won't feel quite as like mandatory and quite as powerful on them, but it will still feel powerful and satisfying and good. So that's the hope at least.
好，也感谢二位的分享。最后来都来了，就给我们的召唤师们来送一句祝福吧。
Thank you guys so much for your passion and for your many years of play.
Yeah, we're so excited that we were able to come to China to celebrate the 13-year anniversary with you all.
哎，那确实啊，既然到了13周年，那我们也准备了一点小道具。在这里，让我们祝英雄联盟国服13周年，3、2、1，生日快乐！哦，3、2、1，生日快乐！
LeBlanc is more frustrating. Have you ever faced a good LeBlanc? OKG, it's just not true. Like, that's the thing. It's like, it's not that LeBlanc isn't frustrating. It's that Zed is, to the average League of Legends player, one of the most frustrating champions in the game when powerful. And I'm sorry if you think differently. It has just not been reflected in his ban rate and frustration data for the last, like, decade plus of League of Legends development, right? Zed is just, he's the guy. He's the guy that many players do not like in terms of assassins. He has the most frustrating assassin pattern out of any assassin in the game for the majority of our players. I shouldn't say the majority, I should say the average League of Legends player. That does not mean other assassins aren't frustrating. LeBlanc, a lot of people find frustrating. Old AKALI was more frustrating than Zed. AKALI, when she came out, many players would have told you that is more frustrating than Zed. Many players would have been like, yeah, she shrouds under towers and can kill me while I am under a tower and being immune to it. Yeah, that's not fair. And so there have been characters in the game and assassins in the game that have been more frustrating than Zed. KASSADIN at one point was more frustrating than Zed. YASUO at one point was more frustrating to a lot of players than Zed. But Zed historically over time, in the long term, over many years, tends to rise, rise to the top as one of the more frustrating characters. To like cap the Zed conversation, whenever I talk about Zed, like, you have to remember, like, that doesn't mean Zed will never be buffed, and it doesn't mean Zed has to be terrible. It just means that Zed, given how popular and frustrating he tends to be, we like Zed, by the way. We think he's a great character. We love having him in the game. There's a reason we don't rework him, right? He's really good for League of Legends overall. It just means that Zed is going to be slightly worse off than he maybe could be if he wasn't, you know, a super popular, fairly frustrating assassin. Doesn't mean he has to be useless, doesn't mean he has to be bad, just means he probably can't be running around at 51% win rate. I would argue personally that Zed and many other assassins are actually a little weak right now. I think assassins have gotten pretty weak over the last, like, you know, year of systemic changes. Is Zed adjustable to make him play in esports? An eternal problem with assassins is to make them truly viable in high MMR. What you would have to do to make them fair in low MMR is generally fairly extreme. So I would say it's definitely possible to make a character like Zed or whoever viable in high MMR, but it's really, the question is at what cost? And I think that's the thing to worry about really, is that, yeah, we could make Zed viable in pro. It may come at a very extreme, and other assassins as well, by the way. Sorry. Many assassins as well. It is hard to make them truly viable in high MMR, or specifically pro play, without some pretty big negative effects on solo queue. And it's mainly just because the way assassins are powerful is generally not favorable to a pro play environment, right? Like, assassins tend to prey on snowballing. They tend to be really good at snowballing. They tend to be really good at, like, you know, sloppy fights. They prey on uncoordinated play. People who are uncoordinated are much worse versus assassins. And so a lot of the things that make an assassin also make it a lot harder for them to be functional to be truly functional in challenger play. Sorry, not challenger play, but pro play.